Try to get them going. All right. So along these lines, what I'd like to start off doing that just to make sure we're all on the same page here. I noticed that about 37% of you submitted your pre-work for this class, and thank you for those that have done it. If those of you need more, have a way of doing it, we're actually going to use it in our first breakout room. So for week two, for
one of the
self,
pre-works was
yes.
not functioning.
So I'm going to come into self-disclosure part two. And so if you pressed on the pre-work here, the assignment up here appears itself, and this is the one that you were asked to access and download. This is the one that we're going to use right now. So in a moment, what I'm going to have you do is ask you to go down and share with your partner or with your partners what is your own personal definition of stigma. So once again, if you did this already, you're just pulling it up. If you didn't, then this is giving you an opportunity to get it out as well. And then we're going to come back and discuss that together as a class. All right. So let me stop sharing here. Can someone else in their own words let us know what we're going to do next, please?
Describe what we think stigma is for us.
Correct. Exactly. And then as you feel safe in doing, as well as in any examples that you may feel comfortable in doing so as well.
Yeah, it's stigma's when they put a label on you and they classify you.
Correct. Hold on, Ronald. That's what you're going to be start sharing with your partners in a moment. I'm just letting these rooms were left open for some reason, and I have to wait a few seconds to close them. I appreciate that.
Okay, so what was supposed to? Sorry about that. What was supposed to be submitted for that? Because I see that it wasn't.
So it was on that form that I just showed you. You were supposed to type in your own personal definition of Sigma, save it, and then read the rest of it, and then that's it, and then you upload it.
Where is it?
It's
Yeah,
under
where is it at?
In the student portal. So some of you have asked to show you all where the handouts come from, and so this is what I'm trying to do. And some of you that are also a little more tech savvy are helping each other by sharing it in the chat. So this is our account, right? This is the syllabus that you see every day. We're now in week two. Co-occurring was yesterday, self-awareness and self-care. You just had with Helen. Right here it says self-disclosure in the workplace 1. And then on the right-hand side, it says self-disclosure in the workplace pre-work. If you click on that, it'll open up. It'll tell you exactly the instructions of what to do. And then that's the handout that you press and you'll save and work out of. Does that make sense, Arturo?
Were we supposed to upload this?
When you're done, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're done. And so with this breakout room activity, my goal for all of you, Lupita, is that you will be done so you can upload it and be good to go.
But when you scroll all the way to the bottom, it says you don't need to upload it.
Just the story part. We're not going to save any of that. You're just doing the stigma part because it's the handout. It goes in. We're going to get into the story sharing later. You're not going to share any of that. You're just going to add your own your own breakout.
Okay, so just the top part. That's what we're uploading.
Stigma, yeah. I'm like, okay. I see where you all are going. So just give each other some space. We're gonna do one at a time. Yes.
Carlos, what was the date on that? Because I saved it in my files, but once again, I'm struggling through the technological.
It's for today's date, Ronald.
Okay.
So today, it's under today's date.
Okay.
All right, and then you're gonna have 10 minutes. All right, let's pause the recording here. There we go. All right, so thank you all for venturing out, trying to figure this out. I'm gonna put it in the chat. You have the option of either if you want to just write some words in the chat, ask Helen to keep that kind of focus, and then if anyone who wants to unmute themselves.
Carlos?
Yes.
Here's how it was for me.
All right, go ahead.
Being an alcoholic from the 7th grade on, growing up in East LA, my dad had a beautiful home, and I remember the 7th, 8th grade, they jumped me into a gang. My dad said, "Hey, man, that's not you. I didn't raise you for that. Go on your paper route and shut your mouth." And so when I'm locked up, they're like, "Hey, homie, don't call me dog because you don't know my tail," which is you don't know my rap. So in my day, you never called anybody this or that. If you knew him, you call him homie, and there I am, drugs and alcohol, and I'm happy to be free. That's all I got.
Beautifully said. Thank you for your share, Ronald. Thank you. And also in the chat, we have Devin says, in my opinion, stigma is when a person is reduced to a stereotype and their full humanity is disregarded and ignored. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think stigma is actually, let me get it on paper. Stigma is a belief about a person, place, or thing or situation that is built off false beliefs, understandings, or misinformation.
Thank you for that, Sarah. So there's a lot. It's a very complex in nature as well, right? So it comes off in definitely beliefs, and how we choose to abide by those beliefs has a role. Yeah, Heather, go ahead.
So I did chat GPT
Ah,
and it's
thanks for the honesty, by the way.
I just thought this kind of interesting. It says, and for many people, it becomes internalized, meaning they start to believe those negative labels of themselves. And I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it kind of pours through our pores, right? Pours into us and goes in there. Appreciate that, Heather. Zarian, what do you got?
I feel like this is like people judging you off things that they heard and never seen. Basically, and then they just putting a label on something that they just basically just judging you off. Basically, they don't even know what other people say, and then treat you a certain way or look at you a certain way. And I feel like that's just in life. I think with culture, like I think it all like everybody has a stigma on them as a race. So I feel like
Well, there's different times for different people in different categories, but definitely involves judgment. Thank you for that, Zarian. Anthony, what do you have?
Yeah, they're all pretty spot on. I got stigma to me is a label / labeling, stereotype, or misconception of a person, place, or thing based off one's perception or how the way society sees it, mainly in a negative way, and then misinformed.
Could you repeat that last part?
Just misinformed,
Misinformation.
and then or how the way society sees it, but it's mainly in a negative way,
Right. Yeah. In that sense, right? I get to hear someone like, oh my gosh, this is the best stigma I've ever had in my life. Right. Said no one ever, in that sense, right? So we all know they're out there, they exist, they're real, and like some of you just said, they stay there, right? Like they kind of get into the fabric of our nature, especially if it's been repeated over and over again, and if it's a put down and it's something you've heard a lot throughout your life. Now I did ask Cynthia for a reminder by looking at you, Cynthia. I just got a word from Georgie, so I'm going to put the link one more time. I know it sounds like we're being repetitive, but because graduation would be a week from this Thursday, we need to figure out who that class speaker will be. So if you have not voted, please do. And for those of you that have, thank you for allowing myself to just kind of put it in here because it is important. And this person is representative of your cohort. And we'll talk more about your cohort and your name shortly. Okay. So thank you for starting off with that. And I like to start off with the stigma. And that's why even when submitting the assignment, focusing on that in itself says a lot about you and kind of how you viewed life, but also what you've journeyed in life, right? And what's brought you to Academy. And that's the important part as well. Okay. I'm going to go into, unless anyone else has any other questions about stigma, we're going to jump straight into the presentation. And the purpose of today is twofold. It's one is for us to think about, well, hey, how do we practice self-disclosure? In other words, what every single one of us has been doing from the beginning, in other words, sharing of ourselves in a way that is both meaningful and professional, right? And safe for us to do so, right? In a way that we feel confident. And so that's the idea for today. Today we'll go through like what I call the educational piece. And then tomorrow, anyone who is willing and able will be invited to share part of their journeys that brought them to CAPS. And you have up to about 3 minutes to do so. But I'll get into that later on. Okay. So today's objectives. Whereas the idea here is to identify barriers that deal with self-disclosure, and then learn how to develop and apply strategies to practice self-disclosure, write, present, and incorporate your own lived experience in a way that that fulfills your role as a PSS or a peer support specialist. And notice that we start class, like we always do, with our comfort agreement, right? Our gathering guidelines. And then in this one in particular, we're going to get into a lot. We'll remind ourselves about confidentiality a lot, and as well as honoring the fact that everyone has their own lived experience and that it's individual, even within a collective space. We're going to talk about a little bit about why we should hold off on self-disclosing on some parts, and then prepare for tomorrow, which would be the shares, the storytelling. Okay. Everyone good so far? All right. Thank you for the head nods. I was waiting for at least one middle finger after guiding, but it's okay. Not just blessing. All right. So our comfort agreement here, we're adding to them in a sense of we have the gathering guidelines that we do every day. Take it to heart. We mean it. We believe in it, and honoring everyone, especially if you need to take, your space and grace. We're going to add the platinum rule here, right? Respect the needs of others as well, even if it may not make sense to me, or I may not deem that, but to whatever keeps the sanctity of our learning environment is really important. Someone talked about judgment. When it comes to stigma, the idea here is that we leave that at the door, right? There's plenty of hate and haters out there drinking haterade right now. We don't need that here, okay? And before we move on, is there anyone that thinks that we may need to add something to our comfort agreement that isn't already covered by the gathering guidelines or anything that's been listed here?
I would simply like to add, Carlos, that be yourself. It's your program, and know that you know what you went through, and that's what matters. That's what matters.
Thank you for that. Do you mind? I'm going to write that down. Be yourself. Thank you, Ronald.
Yes, sir. Be yourself, man. It's all good. We're all human.
All right. Authenticity, I think, is the goal there. That's the idea. Thank you for that. So we talked about stigma, right? Obviously, it's one of these things that, we don't go up like, yeah, I have 10 stigmas. How many do you have, right? It's more of the things that are not said, right? And for anyone that did grow up in a household, whether it was because struggled due to poverty or domestic violence or racism, classism, so on and so forth, you understand how, as a young child, you start to learn real quick where all of this kind of boils down to the fact that you don't really talk about this stuff, right? And you don't really say much about it because addiction is viewed as a negative, right? Substance use is viewed as a negative. Behavioral mental health are viewed as a negative. And then the isms, right? Notice how I say are viewed. I'm not saying that I agree with them in that sense. But if you've ever had to share as a kid kind of what goes on in your home, and then you ask them like, how about you? And they're like, oh, I've never been through that. Then you start to realize real quick, like, oh, okay, this is different, right? And then what started with me is I just started to turn down the volume and not share as much, realizing that it was a very different experience that I was going through. But stigma is real. And part of the reason why CAPS is so powerful is that as peer support specialists, we're breaking that mold, right? By choosing to share parts of our journeys in a professional way that would help, right? Now, the link for some reason that I was going to show you for this bell is known as the Clifford Beers and the Mental Health Bell of Hope. And you can go on to MHAC's Mental Health America's website and they'll show it for you. But what is really cool about this bell is that what they did is they took the shackles from patients, because they used to shackle patients like prisoners, right? And all the chains and everything that they did at different mental institutions. And then they took all of those chains, they mailed them in, and they decided as an organization, how do we honor the people that have gone before us, that have gone through these journeys? And then they created this bell. And so this bell is an actual in existence, and it has actually existed from shackles that people used to, be forced with. And now we can actually kind of use it, and ring the bell of truth in a sense to remind us of both the history, right, the past, but also how it matters today. Does that make sense so far? No? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And I apologize. I wish the link was working so you can see it, but I'm sure if you type in Clifford Beers and the mental health bell of hope, you'll pop it up as well. Okay. So before we go back into your breakout rooms, what I'm going to have you do, actually, can I have someone please read the instructions and the focus questions on the right, please?
Please
Sure.
take turns responding to the focus questions below and only share what feels safe. Focus questions. Have you ever disclosed something about yourself others may not know by looking at you? How was your experience? Why? Friendly reminder, please share the air by practicing active listening skills and allowing your partner time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. And so in a moment, you're going to be put into a pair share. And the idea here is that this is where you choose to practice self-disclosing a part of you to someone else in there. Remember, it's your right to share as much as you can, as little as you can. We're kind of building momentum here in that sense, right? And so the idea is that you have an opportunity, and then we will come back and see how that all goes. Okay. Anyone have any questions so far? Let's see. 22. Create. Boom. To 10 minutes. All right. Let's pause the recording here. Okay. All right. Let's do this. All right, everyone. How was that? Get a little bit deeper in profound. Okay. I'm only gonna take a couple of volunteers who's willing to share what they shared with their partner, or maybe in general of what they were able to kind of summarize from both of their shares. So Brian, let's start you off.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it 100 thou wow with y'all on this one. Like when I was in the middle of active addiction, like I had stole $900 from my mom, and it was very uncomfortable for me to talk about this for like such a long time. And then I went to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and I had shared the story of what I just told y'all, and I was just telling them like how bad I feel about everything like that, because that's not who I am anymore, but that is definitely who I was on a daily basis, and when I shared to them this story, they were just like, that's it? Welcome to Narcotics Anonymous, and I was just like wow, and it really showed me that these experiences that I kept so isolated to myself and had such a stigma about, for people going through similar struggles, it was actually a very common and frequent thing, especially in people in this community I was a part of. So, yeah, that's my story.
Thank you so much, Brian, for practicing self-disclosure with us as well. All right, Steve, what do you have?
This is going to be a shocker, but people don't know. I'm going to share as much as I don't want to share too much about it, but I'll share as much as I can. I was once undocumented. Wow, yeah, surprise. I was once undocumented. I'm not going to disclose my country of origin, but yeah, I was once undocumented. Went through a hard time. People just assumed that I was documented because the way I look. So there was definitely a stereotype there, or a stigma, I'm sorry, there about that. But yeah, I'm documented now. Very much documented.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for that share. All right, Trent, what do you got? And Monica, and then we're going to wrap it up with Sarah to go on our next break. Trent, you're on mute, my friend.
Sorry, I said people must look at me as like a church lady or something. My faith is number one important to me, but I'm not real churchy anymore. But I almost got a DUI. Because I drank heavily for 3 years, and I drove under the influence many, many times. And I got caught once and I just stood there and I kept my mouth shut and the cop let me go. I don't know if it's because I'm a girl or the color of my skin. I mean, it could, I don't know, or a miracle of God. I don't know. But I stopped drinking completely after that. That was the impetus for me to like, I can't do this anymore. Like if I get a DUI, I'm going to lose my job, you know. That's the kind of job I had. Um, but anyway, people are shocked because they think I'm some church lady. But there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and I tried to numb that terrible pain of trauma with alcohol for 3 years.
Hmm. Thank you for your honesty, Tran, for practicing self-disclosure in that way. Okay, Sarah, what do you got?
I don't have a specific story. I'm really an open book. I've had so many different experiences. I've been through a little bit of everything and all the things. So I find just being open and being willing to disclose. That is how that's ultimately that's how I'm here. Um, because sharing with people and letting people know you're not alone. Like everybody said, once they learned that they were not alone, like you're not alone. Like, yeah, I've been there. Not only are you not alone, but that you can overcome because look, I'm here. And most of the things that I've been through, people look at me and be like, you what? But like, yeah, I done been through all the things and many of the things, and I'm an open share with anybody.
Thank you so much for your share, Sarah. Monica, and then we'll wrap it up for a
Okay.
break.
Real quick. When I started sharing that about my low self-esteem, a lot of people really didn't believe me. You know, they'll be like, "Yeah, right, you're pretty. Like, how do you have so low self-esteem?" But they don't understand like unless I would tell them like the root of why did I had low self-esteem, right? Because as a little girl, I was always teased by my brothers or my sister. They would always tell me ugly things like I was ugly and I was too skinny and all this and all that. So as as I started growing up, my low self-esteem was very low. And I remember I used to always cry to my mom and tell her, and tell her like all these things, like, is it true or not, And so in my head, I believed everything that my brothers and my sister would tell me. So as I got older, low self-esteem, I had real low self-esteem. And then I started sharing it, and a lot of people be like, yeah, right. Like, you don't have low self-esteem, And sometimes I still question myself, if I look at myself and I'd be like, oh, I feel ugly today. And I ask my roommate, she'd be like, Monica, you're very beautiful, and try to bring me up, So like, I won't have my low self-esteem. But yeah, that's it.
Appreciate you, Monica, and being honest about that struggle with self-esteem. As I can see in the chat, a lot of people do, right? And then by just saying, right, the cover.
Something one person says to us when we're young can be that voice in our head rattling around in there for years.
Exactly, Jeff. Well said. And on that point, thank you, Helen. Okay. So we're going to go into, so first of all, thank you for sharing with your fellow peers about the idea of stigma, and then also and then the further explanation of how you have experienced some type of self-disclosure in your lives. This next component, we're going to cover some information before going into what tomorrow will look like. Okay, so just bear with me for some information that may seem pretty common sense, quote unquote, but is definitely essential in our field as peer support specialists. All right. And if there's anything in the chat, please let me know, Helen. Okay. So here we go. The main reason why people choose to self-disclose, they're trying to provide some type of assistance to someone. So a lot of times it's because a secret needs to be shared, or they feel like they're going to explode, to seek some type of reasonable accommodation in a situation, right? So for example, like if you're going to apply for the CalMesa exam, there is a request, an accommodation form that you are to complete and you get filled out so that you can get extended time. Okay, so if anyone, that's an example. And then another one on a basic human level is to receive some type of understanding, right? So these are the 4 general reasons why people choose to self-disclose. So far, so good, Ronald? Okay, I can see you, and that's why I'm asking you. All right. Can I have someone please help us out and start reading where it says self-disclosure in action when assisting members, and starting with the top left where it says to provide information, please.
Since I took a break, I would love to do that.
Yeah, Lewis. Go ahead.
All right. All right, everybody. Example, when I was struggling with finding permanent housing, dang, this is my real life. I found it beneficial to work with advocates at PATH. Have you explored any of your local resources? If not, would you mind if we spend some time together looking for some to strengthen the relationship and build trust? Example, although I know exactly what you're going through, I do know what it's like to struggle with my mental health and how difficult it can be to trust people. If it's okay with you, maybe we can use this time to discover how similar our experiences might be. 3, to connect and seek to avoid them feeling alone in their sharing. Example, I appreciate you trusting me with that vulnerable time in your life. When I was struggling with my depression, I remember feeling alone, but appreciating when I had someone I could talk to about my challenges. I'm glad I could be a support for you during this time. Continue. Okay. When asked, have you ever gone through something like this? Example, I've experienced exactly what you've gone through, but I remember mentioning you mentioning you were unhoused for 3 years. I feel we can relate to one another on that. At different points in my life, I was also seeking permanent housing. And I remember.
Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And so once we start our work as peer support specialists, right, self-disclosure is like a tool in our kit that we have, especially if you know of information. So for the first one, a resource that can be beneficial, right? If I know how to apply to Medi-Cal, that may be beneficial for someone who's seeking some food assistance or GR, general relief, that most people don't know about. And then there's this dance between accessing resources, but most importantly, developing kinship and trust in that relationship, right? So there's that give and take where Lewis is not the only one that's sharing about his journey, and I'm just there taking notes and There's actual give and take here that can express like, hey, your journey is different, but this happened to me. You may be able to connect with it and connect with someone in that moment, because I don't know about you, but even though there are over 8 billion people on the planet, excuse me, there are many times when I feel like I am the only person on this planet. No one, the other 8 billion people can understand what I'm going through, right? And this is why loneliness is such an epidemic, right? That we can be around people, but still feel completely lonely and lost at the same time. And when you're asked, have you ever gone through something like this? This is a very delicate question, right? Because you want to connect and be honest in either yes or no, but what you want to try to avoid is making it about you, if that makes sense, right? And then you start talking, oh yeah, actually I did. And then the next half an hour turns into me talking about what I went through when Lewis just asked me if I had been through it, in that sense. Right. Good so far, everybody? All right. Next one. These are, I know it looks the same, but this is different information. May someone else please unmute themselves and read the information on this part when working in the community.
Sure. To participate in advocacy meetings and or lend your voice for a cause. Example, as a mental health consumer, I have found resources that have benefited my wellness, but have also faced challenges in accessing them in my community. Some of the ways I feel we can improve is to establish a relationship with local leaders. Example, as a peer, I would love to collaborate on ways we can work together to improve access to services for people like me and those I serve trying to receive help in the community. To provide educational trainings and or public speaking. Example, as someone who has lived with a mental illness all their life and has experienced the highs and lows of recovery, I stand as an example that success and wellness is possible for everyone, no matter how many challenges we face. And to ensure you meet members where they are. Example, often underserved, unserved, and inappropriately served communities have a hesitation about trusting people who are considered outside or out of touch with their community. Your story, experiences, and the willingness to be transparent helps in breaking down those barriers and connecting with them where they are at.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And so notice how we started with working with the peer and now going outwards into the community, right? Where there are advocacy meetings that need to be held at the local level, right? At the state level, at the federal level to get legislation moved, even just to get people to know what peer support is about. Relationship building isn't just you and your peer or within your organization. It's also with other local leaders who support what is going on, right? Maybe it's Mayor Karen Bass and someone from her office, and if you live in LA City or within certain counties. Along with that, one of the biggest things that we're trying to do now, hence even with these trainings, right, is to provide the educational opportunity for people to know what it's about. What is peer support? How does it work in different arenas? And the more of us who are willing to be open and public about the value of peer support and how it can help us in our lives, and the more willingness there'll be to create more opportunities for jobs, for spaces, for opportunities. And then the big one that you'll hear a lot throughout CAPS training, to meet members where they're at, right? Not every member is going to be able to come into your house, into your office. That's why we have street teams. That's why we go out and meet them at where they're at the park or at a library or somewhere that is more sustainable for them, so that they can actually feel that, hey, someone is meeting me halfway. Someone is willing to listen to my needs and understand that this is also a communal issue as well, right? This is what we will call for our collective health as we move forward. Okay. Y'all sticking there with me? All right, let's get through one more, a different person. Now let's switch from the community to when at the office. Can someone please read the information here?
Understand the strengths of your team. Example, when I was at the early stages of my recovery journey, one of the resources I found beneficial was, and the person that was most helpful was, to provide perspective on the struggles in recovery. Example, in my experience going through my own treatment plan, I recall feeling frustrated with my therapist because I felt they didn't get it, even when they were empathizing with my experience. But what was helpful for me was, do we think this person might be experiencing something similar? If so, how can we work together to help them through that? To collaborate with others. Example, often it's beneficial to accomplish a task or get a second opinion on tackling something when you're able to collaborate with someone who gets it. Disclosing can help identify who might be a great co-collaborator on future projects due to their mutual or different background/experience.
Excellent. Thank you. Gracias, Miranda. Exactly. So when you're working in the office in a team, just as we do, right, is like who has certain strengths, right? Who can we pull from? Who does the peer feel most connected with? Along with that, looking at perspectives, right? There's more than one way to look at life in recovery. And I know it may be difficult, especially if, for example, just to kind of give the abstinence model, which has its merits, and I'm never going to say no to AA or any of that, right? But we also know that for some people, that model doesn't work for them, and then we look into harm reduction, right? And that there's a variance, but just to provide resources and understanding that there's more than one path to help you get to the health and wellness that you need. And then a lot of this work is collaboration, right? You'll be doing warm hands off. We do it all the time at Project Return, right? When we have someone that comes in and needs additional resources, and once they're done with their peer support and they need employment prep or they need to get themselves back out there, then we do that warm handoff. We let them know these services are available and what other areas that they can actually be assisted in. Okay. Good so far, Mercedes? Thank you. Making sure you're awake. Just kidding. All right, there you go. So this is the tricky one. Okay. And I say that because we can all make certain mistakes. And so this is what you avoid, right? As this is part of what not to do professionally as a peer support specialist. The first one is over relating, right? So I'm talking to Mercedes and she says, she breaks down, she shares something about her lived experience. And I'm like, girl, me too. And then she goes, and then there's something else. Oh, yeah, me too. And then me too. And after a certain while, what starts to happen is that the conversation is no longer about Mercedes. It's about how much I can agree to Mercedes. right? And so that changes it and everything. Doesn't mean that you cannot relate, but Mercedes is her own person. She has her own lived journey, right? It'd be hypocritical or kind of condescending for me to be like, I know exactly what you're been through, everything, right? And she would pick up on that as well. So like the example says here, though it's important for a person to feel as they are not alone in their struggles, it's also important to not over-relate to something by using what someone shared as a segue into talking about your lived experience, right? As a peer, is what we're doing as peer support specialists is definitely listening more than talking. This one is important too. When it would be too emotionally wounding. So let's say, for example, you you lost someone that died by suicide, right? Oh, excuse me. Maybe that means that's all you say. You don't go into how it happened. You don't go into those details because as peers, we're still on our own journey, and some of that might be activating, aka triggering, right? So it's important to know who you're talking to, and then you may not know if that person has also lost someone close by them to suicide recently, and it hasn't necessarily been able to process all that information. So being mindful, asking questions is very important. Like, may I share this part with you, or just know that I'm going to share headlines and not details for our own safety, because safety is definitely important as we move forward. Okay, good so far? All right, thank you, Devin and Trent. When it doesn't benefit the relationship, right? Like, so why am I going to start talking about the Dodgers if Ronald like doesn't even care about baseball? Right? Well, why am I going to talk about Chinese food if Christine doesn't even care for Chinese food?
I care about Chinese food.
Good. Now we have something in common. And so the idea is we're going to share what is going to help us, right? It's important to consider the intention behind what we're sharing in that way so that it validates the experience and not takes away from it. Okay. This is the big one here. We live in an age and a time. It is right to the April to this what? April 2026, right?
El 14.
Thank you for that, Ronald. And I'm intentionally slowing down to make the point that we struggle with silence in our world, right? And sometimes silence is more important than the beat bots, like without saying anything, right? But sometimes silence says more than any words or combination of words can, right? You being there with that person in that silence is very powerful, can be an act of love. And so even though silence is uncomfortable, right, it is important to honor the silence when it comes, right? There's times when I'm just like, I don't know what I could say to that, Miranda. Like right now I'm processing. So I'm going to stay quiet for a second and honor what you just said instead of try to come up with some BS, everything's going to be all right in that moment without really knowing all the ins and outs of it, right? So be okay with the silence. And once again, once we start getting through these tomorrow, you'll know what I mean, because we will be practicing it. The most challenging one is as a means of defense. So if a member or client says you don't know what I'm going through, this is not an invitation for you to monopolize a conversation and details our experiences. So it becomes more of a battle. And if that's the case and it becomes defensive, walk it off, shake it off, get feedback, and then come back from it at another way, or maybe potentially see if there is someone else on your team that can best serve this member at the time. Okay. How does that sound, Rosemary? Good so far? Awesome. Thank you. I love that you're all the way from the Eiffel Tower. Brings me. All right. So storytelling. This is what we're going to do next in a moment. But this is a very powerful, powerful quote by Parker J. Palmer. The human soul doesn't want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed, to be seen, heard, and accompanied exactly as it is. When we make that kind of deep bow to the soul of a suffering person, our respect reinforces the soul's healing resources, the only resources that can help the sufferer make it through. Parker J. Parker. And so I know Helen loves quotes, so do I. And then what I'm going to do is set the stage for what's going to happen tomorrow. Anybody know who this sexy guy is here? You can unmute yourself. Yeah, Jeremy?
Mr.
Who is
Rogers.
My
this?
sponsor,
Is that Roger?
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers.
Mr.
who's your mailman?
Neighborhood.
Exactly. Right. Couldn't we all use a Mr. Rogers right now? Right. I feel like we could use another Bob Marley and a Mr. Rogers. So here's the deal. This is how we're going to approach this. Instructions. You're going to use your pre-work handout to help you prepare to share a part of your journey that led you to CAPS Academy. Remember, you only need to share what you feel comfortable with and safe doing so. Please know that you have the option to be an active listener. If you choose not to share, it will be respected. And so the one adaptation I'm going to make to here, this is going to be a bigger group. And so for anyone who chooses to share tomorrow, you'll actually have up to 3 minutes to do so, to make sure that we actually get out of here on time. Okay, but what I also want to share, and I'll start off by first, by the way, you'll know what I mean in a second. Agreed, Arturo. All right. Let me just connect the other handout that we were using earlier to this, because you'll use it in a few minutes. Okay. So I had asked you to take out this pre-work handout where you added your own personal definition for stigma. When we go into breakout rooms, you have an opportunity to use the information here about storytelling. If you need more guidance in terms of like, oh, well, what can I share? How can I share it? Is this meaningful to me? You can use that handout. You do not need to type anything in here, by the way. So this is for you to just use as a reference, okay? The only thing that'll be completed on this one and uploaded is your definition of stigma, which you already did. Does that make sense so far? Yeah, okay, thanks, Anna. All right, go ahead, Shayla.
So what if we did write on that empty page and we submitted the story as well?
Well, in that case, just know that the instructors are the only ones who read it. So no, it won't go out anywhere. It won't go on to Snapchat or TikTok or anything else. So
That's
you
okay.
could also,
I just didn't know. I know it said do not like upload it.
right.
But I was just like, let me just write everything down right now before I forget. And I uploaded the whole thing.
No worries, no worries. So let me come back to this part right here. Okay, so that's the handout that you'll be using momentarily. And then I just want to review one last part. Okay. So tomorrow, the way it'll function, I know Helen mentioned this, there are certain classes that do not get recorded. Tomorrow will be one of them, right? We'll come in, we'll have the instructions. There will be no recording due for confidentiality. So kind of what stays in the CAPS room, stays in the CAPS room as is, right? The way it'll work is that, and Helen will help out, we will take volunteers. You're not being forced to share, right? You're not even being asked to share for a full 3 minutes. If you share for 45 seconds, more power to you. What we will do is we'll take as many of you who are willing to share parts of your journey that led you to CAPS Academy. I think that's the best way I've been able to synthesize it. We'll go in order of the way that they volunteer. Okay, and then we'll keep going. And after each share, we will honor the person who decides to share with a moment of silence, followed by a moment of gratitude. Okay, and then we'll do that by like literally being in silence. And then if you want to say, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate you, Rodney. Thank you, Joyce. We can do that. And then we'll go on to the next one. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Any questions so far about how self-disclosure 2 is going to take place tomorrow? Okay. We'll still have our 3 breaks. And then depending on how many people end up going, that will dictate basically the length of the class. And you will have the option of changing your mind. So every time there's always students halfway through that they're like, I wasn't going to share, but now I will. Go ahead, Shayla.
Just quick question, because
Sure.
I'm looking at the schedule on
Mhm.
our student portal.
Yeah.
How long is our class tomorrow? Because I only says 9 to 11.
It's only, so tomorrow, every day is a 4-hour class. I don't know why
Uh-huh.
it's listed there as 9 to 11.
Yeah, for Wednesday, it only says the self-disclosure in the workplace, like second, and then it says 9 to 11 class evaluation, and then it goes down to Thursday.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's the first to me. It's always a 4-hour class. What I will say is that regardless, even if everyone does share, we will be getting out early. So it is the one class. And thank you for letting me know that, because I actually need to take a screenshot of that.
To resubmit the
Wasn't even
budget.
aware that it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no, perfect, Shayla, perfect clarification. Treat it as a 9-to-1. If anything changes schedule wise, you will get emails, texts, and smoke signals as well. Okay. But I can't tell you exactly when we're gonna get up because it depends on the share. All right. Any other questions before I begin?
All right, awesome. Okay.
Go ahead. Christine, you say something to share?
I didn't realize that my audio was on.
Oh.
Now I was like, ah.
No worries. Okay. I'm just. All right. Just adding a timer.
Does that mean we're gonna have to be up all night to resubmit the budget for those other hours on the on the introduction for class tomorrow?
No, you're not gonna have to be up all night. But what I will do is I will lead by example. And so what I mean by that is that I will go first right now and practice my self-disclosure. I will have 3 minutes on the clock so you can see what it looks like. Okay. And and then that way you have something to kind of base off of that. Does that make sense? Okay. And please, by no means, be like, "Oh, I have to do it like Carlos," because one of you reminded us today about being yourself, and I believe that was Ronald, and be your authentic self, right? And so, all right, I will ask for a moment just afterwards to give me a moment to gather myself before we continue as well. Okay. All right, here we go. It never gets easier in that sense. Talk about all the stuff that's gone in my life. Some essentials. I never met my biological father. He was married and then never got divorced. So my mom left and then got married when I was 5 to my stepfather. And they had a couple younger children, my siblings. And that's when all hell broke loose. So starting from the age of 5, I learned that I was not his child. And so that's when the beatings would start. Psychological, gaslighting, just anything, pinching, anything that would make me, to correct my errors. He made it very clear that I was not his child, and because of that, I was less than. Now, the interesting part that came out of this was that my refuge was school. So I kicked ass at school. I got there early and helped the lunch lady get the breakfast ready in the morning, and I never wanted to leave. Never wanted to leave. And I share this all with you because I was a child raising children, not knowing what it was to be an adult, to be a father, but just knowing that I did not want to be him because he was the one person I hated in my life. Unfortunately, I also learned really quick that as a dark-skinned Latino growing up in LA County, if you're angry and if you're defiant and if you're out there, you're in trouble. So I did not know until years later that the roots of depression had started then. I became very, very quiet about my pain, about my suffering, about what happened, and I wouldn't tell anyone, to the point where I remember staring myself in the mirror at 9 years old and wanting to end my life because I did not want to be here anymore. So I took those journeys and I found that education was my way out of the hood, out of homies. And so I became the first in my family I became the third to graduate from high school, first to graduate from college, first to graduate with my master's, and then the first to become a dropout in my PhD program. I share this all of you because that's when my depressive episodes started kicking in. Depression to me is like the cancer of the mind. I could do everything right and it comes back harder each time. It takes away, it causes as adonia, like no taste, nothing. And I say that because it's so difficult to live and to be seen as now a Latino man and to be like, there's nothing wrong with you. What are you doing? You can keep working. You look good. While inside, I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I don't even know why I'm still here. And so my journey from into this life of recovery, yes, I've also tried substance use and drank and tried to numb the pain, but it's a daily journey that I'm still trying to figure out every single day. And so I'll pause there.
You good? All right.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
You represented one of the words I love more than anything now. This word I call transparency. Bro, no one would ever be, I'm gonna just say this, dude, no one would ever be able to look at you just visually, just talking to you and know the struggle and the pain that you have survived to be sitting before us today. I honor you, brother. Thank you. I honor you.
Beautiful, Carlos. If I cry, I cry, man.
Yo, shut my camera off. I ain't finna let y'all see me go out like
you're looking at a man who abandoned himself, who filled with rage, gun-toting, stone cold crazy alcoholic. My father divorced my mom, move in with his half brother, and commit suicide. And my brother that was with him, when we buried my dad, we didn't have a place to bury him. He got murdered six months after that. And here, this alcoholic who to this day struggles with the same things. I've abandoned myself, and my two daughters, my youngest, who turned 21, says, "Dad, you broke my heart. And I've been bullied since the 3rd grade, and I no longer want to know you. If I don't get you, nobody does, brother."
Thank you so much, Ronald. Thank you for that. I appreciate all of your honesty. And I've been on so many antidepressants that I really want to cry, but I can't. Believe it or not, it's a real thing. So now you got a taste of it in this sense. What I shared with you is my gift to you. If it connects, if it helps, that's the idea here. Okay. And like I said, you be authentic to yourself and be real with yourself. This is something that what we did right now, just the way the 3-minute timer went off, the moment of silence, the expression of gratitude. Thank you to all of you that expressed gratitude. I really, my whole heart, thank you as well, Nadine and all of you in the chat. It means the world to me. What we're going to do next is you're actually going to have a few minutes in breakout rooms to start preparing and thinking. And if you need me to go in there, I will definitely do that. This is some think time. Believe it or not, 3 minutes could seem like an eternity. It could also seem like 3 seconds, because as I was like, how the heck, there's only 5 seconds left? So now you have an idea of one way how to practice self-disclosure for tomorrow. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we go into breakout rooms one last time? I know Monica's stretching out, getting ready. All right. Okay. In that case, all right. Hopefully you were able to kind of just woosah it out a little bit. Sometimes it helps just to be around other people and be heard. Couple reminders for tomorrow. It'll be a volunteer first come, first serve basis. So Helen will, on the chat be like, hey, who wants to go first, second, third? We're going to go off of that list. She'll keep us honest. Once the person is done, so let's say Jeff shares and then the timer goes off, I'll add another 30 seconds. The first 30 seconds after someone speaks will be just for silence. And then the next 30 seconds will be for any expression of gratitude. Just thank you, appreciate you, gratitude, right? What will not happen, and please don't take this in any disrespect, Ronald is someone going into a side conversation, right? Because then that deteriorates from what's being happening as well, right? The other thing, you don't have to participate. And we're going to, on behalf of Helen and I, we're going to thank you in advance for being active listeners. This is one of those classes that I love it, but it also hurts, right? In that sense, because we're getting real in there. And I call it the tipping point. What it's not, this is not what is not going to come out of tomorrow. No one's going to get first place or second place or third place for having the most fucked up life. I do not believe in comparing suffering and pain, right? There is no such thing. And I think it's something that we get cultivated into, right? In there. So please keep that in mind that this by no way, shape, and mean is a competition of I've had it worse. I've had it the worst. I've had it the worst. Only we know what it's like to be in our own bodies, minds, and spirits. And it could be one event, it could be a dozen events in terms of that. Okay. Any final questions or comments before we begin to wrap it up? And thank you for all the love in the chat and all the hearts everywhere.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, please do.
Okay, you suckers. I just found it. All right, all you suckers. All you suckers. I just found out that y'all voted me to be the oh, don't be laughing. I see the little laughing. Oh, you suckers. I see that y'all voted me to be the class spokesperson. And I want to say this truly, and I have chills on my arms while I'm saying this. I couldn't be more honored to represent such a wonderful, loving group of people. I mean, we've had our sidebars, and you guys, in every shape or form, I promise you, it has been nothing but positivity in every moment that I've shared with each of you. And I sincerely, I am thankful for this opportunity, and I promise you, I represent y'all. And hey, write this down, y'all. We're gonna call ourselves the Rocksteady Support Crew. I got y'all.
Right. Congratulations. Congratulations to Lewis for being nominated. You all voted. So now you know who your graduation class speaker is going to be. And on that note, thank you so much. Helen, any reminders before we forget?
Evaluations for this class. Self-disclosure 1.
So self-awareness and self-care with Helen, and then self-disclosure 1 with me. Perfect.
And I'm going to second what Carlos said. I'm still learning a couple of the competencies. I've just been here about a year, and this is the last one I'm learning to present, because for me it's the hardest. So if you're if you're waffling, I'm with you, and do what works best for you tomorrow.
Definitely. And on that note,